Welcome back, guys. My name is David Igono. I'm the host and founder of OllieGolf.com. Today I have on the show Chris Saltmarsh. He is the head golf coach at Florida Tech in, obviously, Florida. Coach, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Now, before we get into the more important stuff and the important questions, I have to ask you, what is the loudest outfit you've ever worn on a golf course? Was it a color thing? Was it plus fours? What's the craziest thing that you've ever worn on a golf course?
You know what? I wouldn't mind actually wearing a pair of plus fours. They don't really; those are hard to find. But I'd actually probably have to say it came this year with both my men's and women's teams. We ordered some loudmouth. Well, I was wearing the loudmouth pants, and they were wearing the shorts that were in an Argyle pattern in our school colors, and that was probably one of the wildest things I guess I could say I've worn to date.
That's cool. So now, I mean, let's jump into the interview now. You just said that you coach men's and women's teams. Before we even start talking about what you're doing now and coaching, how did you get hooked into golf? What was the first thing or the first moment or interaction that captured you?
You know, I grew up playing all sorts of sports. Golf happened to be one of those things that I was naturally talented at. And I would probably have to say when I got cut for my high school baseball team. Baseball was my first passion, my first love. And then, you know, when I got cut from the baseball team, I immediately picked up the golf clubs and went over to golf tryouts and made the team as a freshman. And things just kind of went on from there. I just kind of said the heck with the baseball from there, and golf has been my life since.
So did you ever really play before high school, or is it just more so like you knew how to play, but you never really?
No,
competitively.
I played more. I got more competitive at it in the high school level. I would probably say I picked up a club or had a club in my hand. My dad gave me a club. Probably, gosh, it might even be to my great-grandfather, just hitting balls in the back into the field. You know, I mean, I must have been 4, 5, 6 years old, somewhere in there. I don't have an exact age that I had a club in my hand, but certainly, you know, that's pretty young still to be having a club in your hand and swinging it. And I remember, gosh, I must have been maybe 7 or 8, 9 years old before I could actually play baseball in a league. So I must have been 7 or 8. I remember going to the driving range with the junior group every Saturday morning, and there was a competition. And you know, I can still remember the day. There was you know, if you hit there was like a bucket, probably, gosh, it seemed like 100 yards to me then, but it was probably only 40 yards. And if you hit it in the bucket, the pros had to buy you a Coke. And gosh darn it, if I didn't make them buy me a lot of Cokes at that young age. You know, every Saturday. But, you know, I competed a little bit here and there, just with some junior stuff with my dad, but played in middle school. We did have a team in middle school that I played on, and we were competitive then, but I was always into other sports. Baseball was my big thing, and that really took up a lot of the time, so golf was more of a Saturday sport for me to enjoy with my dad. And shoot, a lot of times it was even I would probably spend 4 or 5 hours chipping and putting. And you know, when Dad got done, if he had a good day on the golf course and had some extra money, we'd go out and play 9 holes. You know, so that was how I grew up playing golf, and things sort of got more competitive. You know, after my first year of high school, I wanted to be better, and I always wanted to be good. I didn't play as a freshman. But I sophomore, junior, and senior years was when I shined, and I just got better.
So, and this is something I definitely want to come back to later on in the interview. Just, I don't want to call it balance because I think that gets too much credit, and balance can be misconstrued depending on what angle you're coming from. It seems to me like you have a, dare I say, organic competitiveness and love for the game that was never stoked by, I don't know. I would say when you play a sport when you're younger and you're forced to play it competitively, or you do play it competitively, you kind of have this almost like this professional mindset to it, where you do it because you're supposed to. You don't necessarily do it because you love to, or that you want to, or that you relax doing it, or what have you. I don't know if that makes sense, but I can totally relate to that.
Yeah, you know what, I think, I don't know how to explain, a competitive drive from when you're that young. And I don't know if it's something that is just something that you're taught, or if it's just instinct. But I was always competitive in any sort of game that my dad and I played. It didn't matter, and I always wanted to play, and I loved to play, and I didn't want to lose. I wouldn't say I was bad at everything, but I know I never always won. So if I didn't win, I wanted to figure out how to win. So that I think that was just a competitive instinct, and certainly I did get an opportunity to watch professional sports and not necessarily golf tournaments. It was always professional baseball. Gosh, I remember being at home either watching the Atlanta Braves or the Chicago Cubs, because growing up in Florida, those were the only teams at the time. There wasn't a Tampa Bay Devil Rays or a Tampa Bay Rays for that matter. They were the Devil Rays when they first came out, and the Florida Marlins, we didn't have that. So it was, baseball, and then watching those guys, and then just competing is sort of that was always the fun thing. And then it'd be hard to explain why golf became one of those passions. I think it's because it's individually driven. There's only one person that has control over what you can do, and that's you. And team sports, I love team sports, but I know as an individual, I knew in order for me to get better, there was only one person that could do that, and that was me.
Now, okay, I don't want to get ahead of myself, because what you just said is, it's almost the essence of why I interview golfers and golf coaches, because of what you just said. But let's talk about college. Let's talk about playing golf going forward. Did you ever envision yourself playing golf in college?
You know what? In the family and in the small town that I grew up, college wasn't a big, going to college was definitely on the agenda. But playing golf in college didn't become more of an idea or reality until it was too late. It wasn't even until I was into my late senior year of our spring season where it was even a thought to go play college golf. And as a college golf coach now, I know that that's far too late for a lot of programs if you want to be competitive and you want to play for a good one. But I would say, I got into it a little bit, I wanted to, I found out that I wanted to play college golf. By that time, it was, like I said, it was a little late. So I ended up staying at home for a year. Now, granted, I went to a couple of colleges that I got accepted to, but all I had was a walk-on position, which I was okay with at first until I went to that particular school and spoke with the coach about wanting to get what time did I need to have to schedule my classes, because it was summer orientation. And at that time, the internet was still coming around. I don't know how I got the coach's number, but I ended up calling him, and he said, "Who's this?" And I had probably just had a tryout with him maybe 2-3 months prior. And he said, "Yeah, well, we'll come in and try and be a walk-on, that sort of thing." And he didn't even know who I was, so that sort of irked me a little bit. But I stayed home for a year, and then knowing that I wanted to play in college, I was still going to community college at the time, working for a golf course. My head golf professional every year, he was from Ohio. His small school came down to visit every year, play the golf courses local in the area, and I got to try out with the coach, and I got to I got to learn a little bit about where he was from and how all that went, and that sort of sparked everything from there. It got me a little bit more of an itch. I had a couple other places that I looked to go from there. Certainly wasn't looking as a Florida boy, wasn't looking to go to Ohio, but the more and more things came around, and I didn't have any other opportunities. I shouldn't say I didn't have any other opportunities. I had a couple of other opportunities, but being from the country and looking at a school in Miami, there's a big contrast of differences there. But I didn't quite feel at home. And the coach in Ohio said, well, you already know what we're going to offer you. If that's good enough, why don't you come up for a visit and see what you think? And this was probably 2 or 3 weeks before classes even started. And I went up there, visited, felt a lot like home. It was the summer / moving into the fall months here. And, it was like probably late July, early August. So it was hot, so it felt like Florida. It felt like home. And that's when I made the decision to go up there and play my college golf.
And this is Walsh University, correct?
That's correct, yep.
So I feel myself just chomping at the bit here because there's so many things I want to ask, but we'll get to them definitely. If I want to do a little word association, what one word would you describe your time at Walsh as a player, as a young man starting to grow into an adult? What one word, and it can be a compound word, you can cheat, I don't care, but just one word that would just give us a glimpse, obviously not the full picture, but a glimpse of your time or your memories of Walsh.
One word to describe my time at Walsh, huh?
Yeah. I mean, to help you out, I played football at West Virginia University. I came there after playing in community college, so, it's kind of a paradigm shift, if you will, perspective shift, just as far as magnitude. And the one word that I would use is not a big word, but I would say it was centering, in a sense that now that I was on that big stage, I completely tore down what I thought I needed to work on and what I thought mattered, and I started working on the things that were important and did matter. I completely focused on making myself a better person, a better student of the game, a better athlete. I focused on all of my weaknesses, knowing full well that there was no way I would get them all solved by the time I left campus. But if I didn't have that centering, like, okay, you were good in your little pond back west. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona. You're good in your little pond out there, but now you're in a bigger pond. What's your perspective? So that's the word I would use. Just I totally got recentered.
If there's one word, I would, it's hard for me to come up with maybe the right one, but maybe right off the top of my head right now, I'd probably have to say everlasting. And I think that has a very wide perspective because I moved 1,000 miles away from home, and the memories that I'll have from competing and even just going to the university there, those memories will be everlasting. Some of my best friends are all from college, so some everlasting friendships. And golf. I went up there to go to school, but I also went up there to go play golf, and that's given me essentially an everlasting, job opportunity. Opportunity to do this for a lifetime. So if that makes sense, I tried bringing some comparisons there as to why I'd say everlasting. I think that's probably the one word that I would choose right now until I could essentially come up with something that I think might be a little bit better. But I think that sort of hits the spot right now.
Oh, and to me that's a great answer because what it does is that it connects everything. Because one of the most annoying annoying angles sports media tries to propagate is that, you can have a personal life and then a public life, or, your career, your athletic career. And that's not true at all. It all runs together. Especially when you're a kid and you go somewhere to play college that, oh, by the way, like you're saying, is 1,000 miles away. It's completely different. I never thought that I'd be homesick, especially doing what I love to do, a sport, a game, but I got terribly homesick. So everlasting is a great way of connecting all of those parts of your life, because if you don't have those things, you probably don't do well at all on the golf course.
Well, and I think you sort of touched on it a little bit there too. The everlasting part for me is also the fact that I just had my Wall of Fame speech I had an induction this past October. And one of the memories that I'll always have is walking into my coach's office and literally saying, "Coach, I'm heading home. It's only a month into school," and I had my car packed, ready to go. All I needed to do was see Coach, and I was ready to go home. And he convinced me to stay for the semester, and he said if I still wanted to go home from there, then he'd be okay with that. But he wanted me to see it through, and that's also created, the everlasting memories that I have, from college now. So
that's awesome. Now, I mean, you got inducted into the Wall of Fame, so there was some success, right? I mean, you didn't obviously go home.
No. I was there for all 4 years. I definitely had some success there. And when I say I had some success, I mean Florida guy who's only played in sunshine, maybe a little bit of wind. And I went up there, and it was in my junior and senior seasons that I was an All-American. I broke several school records. Most, I believe, are still there today. I don't know that I finished out of the top 5 in any tournament that I played in after my sophomore season. And certainly being All-American my junior year, honorable mention All-American my senior year. And my senior year, I was actually in the fall, I was ranked number 1 in the country for the NAIA according to golfstat.com. So, I mean, I definitely had some great success at the university there while playing golf. That was definitely it was humbling to obviously be inducted. That was pretty special.
That's awesome. Now, obviously you're coaching now. You're coaching the game. Not just coaching the game, you're coaching the game at college and men's and women's golf. Did you ever see that in your future, or were you trying to become a pro or playing pro?
I don't know that anybody really knows exactly what they're going to do. Obviously, when I was playing and practicing and being up in Ohio, I mean, my goal was to play professionally. And I spoke with several people about it, and it all comes down to money. Golf's not one of those professions where, you get paid to go play, and figure it out. You actually have to pay your way to figure it out. And then if you're good at that, then you start to make money. So, it boiled down to having the money. And for me, it was, do I have money coming in to where I can pay my bills, or do I want to go see if I can figure it out in the dirt? And I kind of wanted to have a little bit more security. And, do I still wish I would have kind of done a little bit more today? Sure. But I also feel I was smart about, knowing where I was at and the improvements that I needed to make to become a better golfer. Not to say that I couldn't have done it while I was out there, but I just never. I needed the resources, and I really feel when I spoke to a number of people about it, they said, I had money that probably would have lasted me for about a year, and then who knows if I would have made money and kept it going. But I was told if I'm going to have sponsorships and different things from people that would support me to try and get I needed at least 3 years to figure it out, whether I wanted to keep going from there or not. And I believe that because, I was a scratch golfer in Florida in the junior level, big fish in a small pond, could shoot under par, but the consistency wasn't there. And that showed itself when I went to Ohio. Not only did I play under different conditions, rain, sleet, snow, freezing cold, but I played on a different grass, and that was an adjustment. And I went from being a scratch golfer, not to say that I wasn't still scratch, but I wasn't as consistent. And I went from averaging 76 and 75 my freshman and sophomore years to averaging 72 and 73 my junior and senior years. And at one time I averaged 70 the fall season of my senior year. That was all, after 3 years is when things started to click. And that's kind of where I'm kind of getting with the whole wanting to go professional. I didn't know that I wanted to get into it. I didn't really get into coaching until after I graduated. The money wasn't there to be able to really do it the right way, or what I perceived to be the right way. And basically went from wanted to go back to get my master's. That was the next step, and still try and play golf a little bit here and there. I still play amateur golf during the summers, but that sort of catapulted my coaching career because I started off as a graduate assistant. We had an assistant basketball coach as a head golf coach. So we ended up, being one of the better players, or probably one of the best players at the university at the time. Was given, the opportunity to be a graduate assistant, and the assistant basketball coach, which was the head golf coach, essentially gave me full reign. Said anything came in that had to do with golf, I got to see it, do it, work with it, and that led from one position to the next. I went from as a GA, I started as a GA for both the men's and the women's team in my alma mater to a head graduate assistant coach at Tiffin University before eventually making it down to West Palm Beach probably 6 months later. And I was a head men's and women's golf coach there for 4 years before coming here to Florida Tech. I probably went off on a little bit of a tangent there on you, David, but
No, those are great tangents. I always marvel at how to quickly address the pro angle that you mentioned. It's funny when you stick to your guns and you go after what's in your heart, even if it fails, you usually come out awesome. I would dare to say that, maybe you could have done X as a pro golfer, but you weren't totally convinced and you went another route. And I would say, the little research I've done on you, it's worked out and you're happy. There's nothing worse, in my opinion, to have a regret as far as what you should have done or what you didn't do, or what other people told you to do and you did it not believing in it. And that's always reflected here.
It comes back to a lot of what I spoke about earlier. I love to compete. And even though I'm not able to compete at the professional level, I still get the opportunity to compete with my guys and girls throughout the year. Not on a daily basis. To me, that would be selfish of me. I'll pick up the clubs once or twice a month to go play with them when they want me to, or if they want to get a little game going. But the summertime is when I give myself an opportunity to compete. And I look at it now, I said, if I was really that good, not to say that I wasn't a good player, and obviously taking 6, 7, 8 months of coaching and then trying to bottle up my best golf during the summer is a little difficult. But, I always think to myself, if I was really that good, I would be out there, dominating in some of the Florida State stuff. I would have qualified for U.S. and by now. I've always been just a few shots short. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's what keeps me driving to do it again next year and the year after that. And it also helps, provide me with lessons for the students that I'm fortunate enough to coach.
Yeah, there's so much there. It's almost like I have to just turn away, or I'll get off track here. Constructive criticism and being able to perceive where you are compared to where you could be, and understand that, you don't time travel, you don't long, or dare I say, expect empty-handedly about what may or might not have been, but you maximize the opportunities that you do have to compete. I'm very much the same way. I love competition, but at the same time, there's a time and a place, and you have to be measured. You're not 14 years old anymore, where you're obsessed with competition at every juncture. Some people are like that, and I don't know how it works out for them, but they're usually pretty strung out. But anyways, back to our main flow of our conversation. So you're at Florida Tech right now. You gave us sort of a nice summary of your coaching career, and you've done a lot of positions where you're, I want to say almost every position you've been the men and women's coach. So I want to ask you, as a two-part question, I want to ask you how you manage the different personalities and genders and all that, but also obviously you're NAIA, and that's not to say that the golf is better or worse, but you have a slightly different playing field. So if you could give us a little insight on that two-part question, that'd be awesome.
Well, Florida Tech is Division II, but I when I was at Northwood University, we were
that's right. That's right. I'm sorry.
And no, it's okay. And when I played my golf at Walsh University, they were NAIA. They've now gone Division II. So being an NAIA player and knowing that, I should say a former NAIA player, former NAIA coach, my relationship when I was recruiting and speaking with those players was, look, you still have the same opportunity everyone else does. And I've got the paperwork to show that, in my senior year, I was ranked 25th in the country out of everybody in golf stat, Division I, II, and III. I was rated number 1 in the NAIA. The possibilities are just the same for them as it is for anybody else. We might not, at the NAIA level, you may not get the same luxuries as your Division I's do. But there's something to be said for what you can do for yourself, not necessarily what somebody can do for you. It's a matter of what you put into it. Really is what I try and convey to those with the NAIA mentality being, a lesser value. I never really saw it as that. It was an opportunity to play that I didn't have anywhere else at the time. But managing the personalities, I don't treat anybody any different. Men or women, they're getting the same person from me. I'm going to give them the same sort of constructive criticism. And I wouldn't say I let up on either one. Maybe I might be a little bit firmer with the guys and the girls, but I still hold a pretty firm hold on what I like to do or what I like to try and get across, or message-wise, those sorts of things, and that's gender-wise doesn't make a difference to me. Is there a little difference in how they react and how they act on the golf course and after a tournament? Sure. The guys will be a lot more quiet after a bad round or a disappointing finish, whereas the girls, they might be it might be 5 minutes and then they're on to the next thing. that if there's a difference in that sort of respect, that's what I see. And as far as how I coach the two, like I said, I try not to feel like I'm treating them any differently. Whether I have or not, that might be solely on the perception of the individuals that are around me on a daily basis. But that's certainly not what I try to do.
Now, when you say I'm gonna try to separate these two concepts, because I think that a lot of people kind of struggle with this, or they don't understand what it means. When you say that you treat everybody the same, guy or girl, depending on whatever type of player that they are, it doesn't mean that there's one team talk, or there's one way that you teach, that there's one, dare I say, one band, one sound. It is not, and honestly, it's not saying that you're not saying that. But what I am trying to say, as far as personal development of each player, yes, as an umbrella, you're the same coach. You're the same Coach Chris or Coach Saltmarsh, whatever they call you. But from a relational level, it's case by case. And do you kind of mirror some of your mentors or some of your prior coaches, or have you kind of just figured out your own blend or approach that just works for you?
I think it's a little bit of a mix. I think I sort of have my own approach, but the more and more I coach, the more and more I try and reflect on mentors that I've had. I've probably made more phone calls in the past 2 or 3 years to former coaches and former mentors to me, or people that I perceive to be a mentor, just to learn, because there's always something that is different, and there's always another approach. And I think, and to be honest with you, I think a lot of it as a single guy, a lot of the people that I call upon are family men, guys that have sons, guys that have daughters, a couple of women that obviously they have families, and I always try and figure out, here's where I'm struggling. There are things that I think everybody struggles with, but I definitely try and figure out, I try and pull from what I consider resources. So it's a little bit of a blend. Sometimes I'll be trying to communicate with a player and I'll struggle, simply because I was trying to do it my way and ask for a little bit of help here and there, and next thing you know, the light bulb goes on for both myself and the player, and we're able to move forward. So I definitely think it's a bit of a blend for me personally. I don't think I can do it all on my own, and I think that's sort of how I've really walked through my life, and the fact that I like to do things on my own first, but I definitely when I come to a point where I can't push myself forward, and not that I can't push myself forward, but I've come to a stopping block, so to speak, I reach out for resources. And I think that's one of the greatest tools anybody can really learn from is those that it's all opinions, but or experiences, I should say, more than anything.
Those are I found, just to echo that, I found that the easiest, not even easy, the smartest way, especially for young men, or men, period, anybody, not just men, but the smartest way to advance yourself in your career and to be able to use the wisdom and knowledge of others is to have mentors and to ask the people who've gone ahead of you, who have dealt with either more extreme situations or have succeeded on a far higher level than you ever had. And maybe it's a different arena or a different path or whatever. But that's, to me, is one of the quickest ways to accelerate your advancement, because you're able to be given insight that may not be necessarily custom fit for you, but applies to your situation and allows you to see the connection between the solution and the problem and find a result. So that's awesome advice.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. I mean, I'm trying to remember whether there was somebody that I was speaking to, and when you start looking at some of the best players that we've ever seen play the game, maybe not necessarily golf, but let's look at basketball for instance. You got a great player like Michael Jordan, and you got young guys coming up, so they're trying to emulate Jordan. What do you think? Who do you think LeBron looked after when he was coming up? We get these younger kids. We go, how did we get that much better? And a lot of people, someone said, don't think of it as stealing, but pay attention to what the best are doing. And I'm always looking to see what, who's on top of the game. What are they doing differently? And it's not necessarily stealing, but borrowing, and that's how you get better. And you're basically taking their experiences and building upon it. And I think that's sort of along the same lines.
Yeah, I mean, that one of the best books I've read in the past couple of years, and it's a short book, so I definitely recommend it to you, or if you haven't read it, or definitely the audience, is Steal Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. It completely changes how we approach not only art, but it changes how we should look at people that do what we do really well. So let's stick with the basketball example. If I play basketball and I want to figure out how Kobe does that pull-away fadeaway, I need to study it. I need to find out how to do it. If I don't have the ability to do or go to my left hand as well in certain situations, depending on which side I'm on, but say a guy like Chris Paul can do it, I need to study him. And it's not stealing, like you're saying. It's an art, and you're not going to do it exactly the way that Chris Paul is going to do it. You can't swing exactly the way that Tiger Woods can swing. You can't.
No.
If you could, you'd probably be profiting off of it a little bit more. Like it's not. There's no way that you can do a like-for-like swap. But what happens, there's this beautiful synergy that happens when you emulate somebody who's successful and you take the good parts of their game or their art or their research and you attach it to something else, i.e. what you're good at, your strengths, your weaknesses. You create something that's completely different, but is just as good. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of athletes kind of struggle with, in the sense that they want to copy Peyton Manning's backstep. They want to copy how Johnny Manziel throws. I'm not saying that's good or bad. What I'm saying is that you should copy what he's looking at, what he's avoiding, why he's throwing it that way. You're copying the perceived result, not the machinations or the movements. That's a profound difference.
Yeah, and then that's kind of going back to your question. That's why I said I always try and pull from others' experiences, and then obviously see what others are doing, in certain situations. And that's something that's helped me sort of navigate young personalities, because a lot of them grow up now entitled, or they already know it all, and trying to get that idea that there's other information out there. Just take what someone's giving you, and obviously there's going to be some that you're going to like and some that you're not going to like, but work with what's being given and make the best of it. And when I learned that after my freshman year of college, because I was strong in the fact that I would only get taught by this one guy to play golf. And it wasn't until my sophomore season when I struggled a little bit. I had a good freshman season, but after I struggled a little bit my sophomore season with my short game, that I listened to a guy that literally cut grass to college, but he had a great story. He was around Seve Ballesteros in his heyday. It was an older Spaniard. I still talk to him today, but he helped elevate my short game from just being mediocre to what I felt at the time. I mean, it cut 3 to 4 shots off my game, and I could get up and down from anywhere. So just being aware of, who you can learn from, and, taking in from a wiser, older gentleman that may not look like he knows what he's talking about because he's not as young, but he's been around, he's seen it all. And, I've tried to learn that from myself, even into my coaching, because there are some times where I go, I can do this, or I know how to do that, and then I take a step back and try and reflect, and just try and learn from, who can I learn from now, essentially, to help me with situations that I'll find myself in.
I love that aspect of who can you learn from. I forget who. I want to say it was I'm mad now because I've forgotten who. I'm trying to see in my mind where he essentially said that he said what you said, and he gave an example of how he's either a football or basketball player, and you should never be afraid to learn something from anybody, no matter if they're the janitor or they're a teacher or a mom. If they can teach you, I think he was even saying how he learned how to sidestep like oncoming defenders or whatever from how a house cat moved when he was avoiding his wife's foot or something. And I just laugh because it's like that is the essence of learning, and that's the essence of challenging yourself. I mean, I think that we're sort of browbeaten into thinking that you're only in school while you have textbooks and that you have to go to class. While when you're an athlete and when you are forget about being an athlete, when your profession or your livelihood or your passion is about performance, every single waking moment is an opportunity to perceive where you can improve yourself. And I mean, that is paramount. That is paramount. The last question I have for you, and I just want to thank you again for just taking time out to even talk with me, is I want to talk about Florida Tech. I want to talk about what you were building there and what are some of your future goals going into this fall 2014 season. So, again, thank you for coming on the show. And I know that you guys you're building a nice little program down there in Florida.
I thank you for having me, David. The program. I mean, this is the end of my 4th season, and I sort of use the same thing that I used when I was at Northwood when I built those programs up from mid-30 teams rankings to this year my women's team they finished ranked 4th in the country, and the men's team finished ranked 15th in the country. And I really wish I could say there was a formula, a way to do it, but I just sort of have my own way of going about things, and it's just all about structure and pushing them. I'm big on pushing them. There's probably a lot of guys that I don't let them know what I'm thinking, and maybe that's good, maybe that's bad, but it's helped lead to some of the successes I think that the program's had. I mean, every year both programs have improved scoring average-wise. Both programs have improved rankings-wise. And now, granted, I mean, when you come from one, when you're mid-40s, mid-30s team on the guys' side to being 15th, some of that has to do with recruiting. Same thing on the women. The women were a mid-30s team, and just providing some structure and finding those that are willing to put the heart and soul into getting better, those sorts of things, and then just really demanding a lot out of them daily. And moving forward, this past year was we overachieved from what I thought we would be on the women's side of things, and I mean that in a good way. I brought in 4 freshmen last year, and all of them contributed to where we were at. I had one that pushed a little bit farther forward than anticipated, but that sort of helped us to where, put us in that top 4, top 5 category. On the women's side for Florida Tech, I'd like to think we've got a pair of girls that are going to come in this year and make us better. And, that's kind of hard to figure out because, we just had one of our best seasons. We only finished out of the top 3 times all season last year. The fourth time being the regional championship. Had we finished 3rd, we'd have gone to the national championship. And I think a lot of things that drive me, as part of the Florida Tech and what we'd like to do is we want to get to the national championship. No team in the short history, it's only been 10 years, has ever gone to the national championship. When I took over 4 years ago, the goal was just to get to the regional championship. We've been 4 straight years in a row on the men's side, and I would say my first year on the men's side, we were ranked, there were 20 teams in our super regional, and out of the rankings, we were the 20th ranked team, and we finished 3 shots away from going to the national championship. And then 2 out of the last 3 years, we've been 1 shot away from going to the national championship. Pretty heartbreaking, pretty devastating for the teams, because it's not just that I want it for them. I want them to be able to experience what it's like to get to that national level. On the women's side, it just took a matter of recruiting and bringing in some special players that I believe this year. I mean, I'll have 2 seniors this year that will have seen both ends of the spectrum, where we didn't even have a chance of going to the regionals, to we've been to back-to-back regionals the past 2 years. And this year we had, last year was a difficult, and we would have had to play some really great golf to go to the national championship, because we play against some very great teams in our region, all conference teams. And this past year we were in 3rd, and we just got outplayed. We missed going by 5 shots, and I'd like to think that this coming year we can be that much stronger to where both teams have an opportunity to go to the national championship for the first time in history. To do it with both teams at one time, I think would certainly be something special, not just for myself as a coach, but for the program and for the school itself. And when they asked me to come in 4 years ago, they said they wanted to be a top team. They wanted to be a contender. And they've given me the time, they've given me the resources to do it. And, it's not all about me. It's about what the university has been able to help me with, to help them, to help our students engage and be the best that they can be. And I think that's what's put us to where we're at. And obviously the hopeful goal would be not only to win a national championship, but there's some conference titles I think we'd like to squeeze in there, and maybe even a regional title. So, those are some of the goals. And after a great year that we had on the women's side, and certainly a great year on the men's side, it's just to keep improving. The women's program, and I've been here for 4 years, has only had 1 win. And it was a big win for us. I mean, that sort of helped us into the regional last year, and sort of gave us that opportunity to even think about advancing to the national championship. But I think this program has a lot of wins looking forward. That's for sure.
That's awesome.
And ultimately a national championship.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, Coach, I want to thank you again for coming on to the show. We definitely have to talk again, and I appreciate you just being candid and sharing your story with us.
I appreciate you having me on. It was a pleasure.
And thank you to everybody else for being a part of it.